The comments, opinions, and views shared during this program are of those individual Freemasons and do not reflect the official position of a Grand Lodge, concordant body, appendant body, Masonic Authority, or craftsmanonline.com. Welcome to the Craftsman Online Podcast, the only 5-star rated Masonic podcast endorsed by the Grand Lodge of New York.
Hey, welcome back. It's Right Worshipful Michael Arce, and you've joined us for an interesting episode on how Freemasonry might be the cure for Gen Z men's desperate loneliness. But before we get to that, I want to give you the heads up that Bricks Masons will be sponsoring our second annual Masonic Holiday Shopping Special episode that'll be taking place with our special co-host, Brother Matthew Brockbank, coming up on Cyber Monday. Matt has put together his definitive 5 hand-selected holiday gift ideas, all from BricksMasons.com. Here's a cool thing for you. Bricks Masons is a proud sponsor of the Craftsman Online podcast, and they're going to be offering a special Cyber Monday buy one, get 80% off, and free shipping codes for our podcast listeners. You'll get that during the special episode this Cyber Monday, December 2nd, with Craftsman Online. For this episode, I'm proud to bring a first-time guest in who has gotten a lot of attention thanks to a very powerful article that he wrote in February. It's titled, Freemasonry Might Be the Cure for Gen Z Men's Desperate Loneliness. He's also going to be one of our speakers at the New York Masonicon coming up January of 2025. Worshipful Brother Bull Garlington, welcome to the Craftsman Online podcast.
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me.
So you wrote this article back in February that has come to this conclusion that there's a chance for Freemasonry to kind of be, I don't know if it's a life raft or a way to make a social connection or something relevant to that. Tell us a little bit about the article, where it came from, what inspired you to write it.
I'm a member of a very young lodge, both in terms of the median age of members, and we're not even 6 years old yet. I have a son who's in his late 20s. I have nephews. Just in my life, there's a lot of people that are younger. One of the things I noticed about my son and his friends and some of these other people is they have now sort of become people that remain at home. It wasn't just about remote work. It sort of happened when a lot of these guys were coming of age, sort of interrupted an important growth period for young guys, which is when there are young people, when they're out there meeting new people and making new friends around the college age and such, and entering the workforce and meeting new people there. None of that happened, and they're all at home by themselves. What you're beginning to see online, or what I've been seeing online for a while in chat rooms and on Reddit and stuff like that, is a constant refrain of, what the heck do I do? I have no friends. I'm so lonely. I don't know what to do. It's all over the place on the internet.
Take me back to where this began for you. Where were you at in your life? What was going on when you first knocked on the door of a lodge or even had an interest in Freemasonry?
First of all, it was in Florida, so it was in the southern jurisdiction. I come from a union family. My grandfather founded the Plumber Pipe Fitters Union Local 803, and my dad was an officer. My uncle was an officer, and so and I grew up, among those guys. And Freemasonry was pretty strong among the unions, and at least in Florida. I think I was 26. Somebody at the union hall decided that he was a worshipful master at a lodge, Mocana Lodge in Ocoee, Florida, and decided to have a one-day raising, which is something they can do in Florida. And so several lodges banded together, and we all met in the Shrine Auditorium. There was 140 participants. And my dad, myself, and my uncle, we all joined simultaneously. I was a spectator. I would not call it a solemn occasion. It was kind of strange, but that's how I got into it. My family have been Freemasons on both sides for a million years. That was another thing, is that it was already just sort of part of my family.
So the article came out in February. It's titled, Freemasonry Might Be the Cure for Gen Z Men's Desperate Loneliness. I read this at least 3 times the first day I saw it, because there was one of the subheadings that jumped out. And I just want you to speak about this a little bit. It's probably going to be a quote that should be a top-selling Masonic t-shirt. Freemasonry saved my lonely ass.
That's stage 2 of my Masonic career.
What was going on with you?
So I moved from Florida to Chicago. My wife is from Chicago. She got a great job up here, so we moved. Not long after that, when she got hired, it was suddenly apparent that one of us had to stay home, and it was apparent that it would be the writer. And so I stayed home and with my kids, and they would go off to school in a day, and suddenly I found myself alone. After a couple of weeks, it was not good because my wife was traveling. She was in Germany and New York, and then she's at the office for 16 hours a day because that's how lawyers operate. And all the people that I'd become friends with, they were at work. And one day I just broke down, and I was in the kitchen, and I think I just leaned on the counter, and I started sobbing, and I didn't know why, because nothing preceded it. I was just doing my stuff. I was just getting ready for supper, getting ready to go get the kids in a few minutes, and just making sure there were snacks and I was prepped and everything. And suddenly I find myself having a crying jag. And I called my sister, because my sister and we're each other's life coaches. And she said, "Well, you used to spend all day long talking to people for several years, and now suddenly you're by yourself." And she goes, "You're lonely." It didn't really hit, so I called my uncle, my uncle Dave. He was like, "Yeah, you're all by yourself and you're fucking lonely. You should get your ass to lodge." And then that's when I remembered, oh yeah, I'm a Freemason. What the hell? Because I hadn't really been going in Florida, because that's a long story. But like many young Masons, I had what you would call a not great experience, and I just thought to myself, I'm not spending time with these old gas bags. I reached out to the Grand Lodge, Grand Masonic Lodge of Illinois, not telling them that I was already a Freemason, because I didn't know anything about Freemasonry. I didn't know I needed to tell them, and I just assumed they, knew that through ESP. So I went through the whole thing of meeting some guys, and they came and investigated me, and they're sitting around my table like a formal investigation after I filled out a petition and everything, like I'd never been to lodge before. I said, "Well, when I was raised in Florida," and one of them goes, "I'm sorry, what?" And I said, "Yeah, when I became a Mason, like five years ago." And he was like, "You're already a Mason?"
What I find interesting about your story, and just kind of looking at it through the lens of mine, is that you're a boomer. I'm Gen X. You write this article for Gen Z, but you and I both entered Freemasonry around the same time in our life. I was in my mid-30s. You were in your early 30s. I was actually going through a divorce. So as it happened for me, is in most relationships when they end, friendships and family get severed. And when you're the away team, you instantly go from knowing everybody to having no connections. Just like you feel very isolated. So I was looking for new friends in my life. And the other thing that I've heard from guys in their 30s particularly, I don't think it really is a generational thing. I think it's just at that time in their life. They say this, and I'm like, wow, they know. They're like, I want to make friends with a better class of person, or meet a better type of man to have around me. They want to get rid of the college friends and get into like real lifelong friends. And I never really associated that with Freemasonry.
It's not just about this Gen Z that's lonely. It is an aspect of human development that men go through, that in their mid 20s to their mid 30s, their life changes in many ways. And like you said, they change their friendship networks a lot of times, because they go off to college or they go into a job, and that happens to all the other people they know too. So suddenly all these circles of friends begin to drift apart. Like they drift apart and they don't come back. Maybe they'll email, whatever, but they really don't come back. And so then a guy finds himself kind of isolated and alone and detached, not connected. At the same time, a lot of these guys are at that moment, they've established themselves. They've got a job. They probably have a nice place to live. Sometimes they have a family, and all those things combined bring them over the threshold from their previous life, which is basically adolescence and extended adolescence, into actual adulthood. And then they realize, oh God, I'm an adult and I don't know any other adults. And so it's a thing that's common in human development. With Gen Z, that moment, it happened for them because people did drift away. But the second part that didn't happen is for them to go out into a workforce or school and be around other people and make new connections. That did not happen. And that's why typically a lot of Freemasons or new Freemasons are that age.
We're talking with Bull Garlington. He's an almost 30-year member, past master. He's going to be one of our speakers at the New York Masonic Con this coming January. You can get all the details for tickets and how to see Bull and be a part of this inaugural event in the notes for this episode. He's also a non-lizard person. yet. We're holding out hope that he does become maybe king of the lizard people.
Definitely not.
You were talking about mentorship, and it's, I think, one of the most crucial parts of Freemasonry that unfortunately just really gets looked over. And it starts before the ritual proficiency, but it certainly continues there with the degree work. It actually starts when a guy is just a candidate or a prospect or an interested gentleman or whatever you call it in your jurisdiction, and they're looking to join a lodge, and they find someone that they can kind of start navigating all of this through. Talk to me a little bit about how you've looked at this as the relationship. Young people, especially young men at this point in their 30s, they're trying to find a better class of friends, but they're also looking for some help when it comes to navigating through some of the complexities of now being a man at this stage in life.
Again, this is a human development thing. And for me, as a guy I spend my life telling stories. That's what I do. So I'm deeply immersed in the whole idea of the monomyth and Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces and the heroic journey. And I think that this is something that is part of the bone. It's bone deep in sort of the architecture of being a man in the Western world. And what happens is, as you leave your ordinary life, being a young man and moving into your 30s and all the stuff we talked about earlier, as you do that, it's natural for you to leave your parents sort of behind, whether that is an actual physically leaving them behind, or it's more like their influence moves into the background. You become open to, and maybe even clearly searching for, a new father figure, a new male influence in your life, a Dutch uncle type of thing. And I think that for me, I see it happening all the time in my lodge and other lodges. You see these young guys, they find an older guy, usually same age as their dad. That relationship just gels, and that older Mason, if he is intelligent enough, if he is open to it, if his heart is good, becomes a mentor for that young guy.
I'm Right Worshipful Michael Arce, and on behalf of the Grand Lodge of New York and our Grand Master, Most Worshipful Stephen Adam Rubin, I invite you to join us for a day of Masonic education, fellowship, and brotherhood at the first New York Masonicon, coming up Saturday, January 18th, 2025. Our all-day event will take place at the Grand Lodge of New York building in the heart of Manhattan and feature Masonic speakers like Worshipful Brother Chuck Dunning, Worshipful Brother Bull Garlington, Right Worshipful Brother Michael Aracco, Brother Jim Laporto, and our keynote speaker, Major General William Green Jr., Chief of Chaplains of the U.S. Army. Get ticket information at NewYorkMasonicCon.com or open your player and click on the link in the show notes for this episode. Kick off the new year with a focus on Freemasonry in the 21st century with the Grand Lodge of New York and the first ever New York Masonicon. In the term like on your own, you really start to understand like you are alone, honestly, and you're always looking for that mentor figure, at least, professionally or even personally. Now I kind of look at it in the reverse. I'm going to be 47 in a few months, and I find myself wanting to reach out to the younger guys to get their perspective on things so that I can continue to look forward. How are you looking at things at this stage in the game? If we're looking at the Joseph Campbell story, like I always tell people, I'm not old enough yet to take that part.
I'm a member of a lodge of Obi-Wans, I take my role as a mentor very, very seriously. I think it is possibly the most important aspect of Freemasonry, and I base everything that I understand about Freemasonry on that relationship between two individuals. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's older than you or anything like that. It's mentorship can come from any age bracket to any other age bracket. It's not necessarily that imbalance of ages, but it usually is. And there's a couple of guys in my lodge that I stay in constant contact with in the same frequency as I'm in contact with my nephews in Alabama who are not Freemasons, and my family, my sister, my mom, my wife. It's the same exact frequency for me. They are part of my family. And so I check in on them all the time. I think about what they're doing. I ask them questions, and I also think about where they are in their Masonic journey. And occasionally I get all, I put on my mentor hat. Maybe I challenged them about something. Maybe I asked them some probing questions like they're not obvious, but they lead to a conversation where they begin to talk about where they are in their journey. But I think all those things are really important. A lot of times, the stuff we talk about has nothing. In fact, 90% of the time, our conversations have absolutely nothing to do with Freemasonry, except that, yeah, they do.
If it's a 10-minute long conversation, like 6 minutes, if it's about Freemasonry, has something to do with the lodge. The other 4 minutes is like that personal development part. We're talking with Bull Garlington. He's the author of the article Freemasonry Might Be the Cure for Gen Z Men's Desperate Loneliness. As I mentioned, I read it like 3 times when I first got it sent to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. And the reason why I liked it so much is that I found the way that you described your lodge brothers, especially, I would say it was very authentic and it was very honest. And one of my favorite lines from your article is, quote, "If a dude is a self-appointed expert on everything from industrial logistics to Australian zip ties, his expertise will come with him to lodge." End quote. Can you tell us a little bit about this exciting array of brothers that these unique men that you're now friends with?
Yeah, especially like if I'm giving a talk to a lodge, a lot of times a guy will get up and somehow whatever I said leads to whatever he's really into. He just start talking. It has nothing to do with what my speech was about, but he is going to give you everything you need to know about why beepers went out of service in the early 90s and what replaced them. It's completely crazy town, and but what that was illustrating really is that a lodge is made up of people from your neighborhood, the people in your life, whoever somehow ends up there through the networks of the members of your lodge. Some people are irritating. Some people go on and on. Some people tell shaggy dog stories, and you want to strangle them. Not everybody is Obi-Wan Kenobi. But those same people, even though sometimes maybe they take the floor away from the lodge, so to speak, those same people are the ones that would be first one to show up when you text everybody and say, my car broke down and my spare is flat too, and somebody help. That he'll be the first guy to show up there.
It's so interesting. You walk into a Masonic lodge, and my favorite are the ones where you can tell that there's a really tight culture and a really tight group of brothers there, because they actually at dinner or even like afterwards kind of start fighting like brothers, which you're like, wow, these guys really are friendly with each other. Like they really get it. Goes beyond that like business meeting.
The ball busting is exquisite, and it's like it's Neoplatonic level philosophy level ball busting, and it's fantastic. I think for me one of the touchstones, one of the watermarks of the closeness of a lodge is how many brothers know the names of their brothers' wives. I say wives. We have several gay members, so it's not just wives. The significant others in a lodge are a big part of our lodge. They give lectures to us. We have several. Most of them are professionals. We have several professors, including one is a professor of literature at a university, and she has given some of the most incredible lectures and educational um, presentations that we've had. So our significant others are a super important part of our lodge, and I am friends with them as much as I am friends with my brother. I the other day I'm looking out my window at my neighbor's house over here. These guys are wonderful, and they invited us to dinner recently. They're snooty, and I love that. And so it was like a 7-course meal, and one of the courses was a cheese course, because of course it is. And I know that my buddy Scott's wife Wendy is she and I we're both cheeseheads, and I immediately took a picture and texted it to her, out of the blue. I know that I am constantly asking my buddy Tony's wife Elaine, because I'm a writer and she's a writer, and I'm constantly sending her text messages like, I don't even know what this word means, and this guy's writing makes me want to stab myself in the eye with a pencil, and we talk back and forth about stuff like that. She got she's so great because she knows that I'm basically, despite the fact that I am attending Oxford and I'm published and yada yada yada, I am trailer trash. I am dirt road rat, and I was mispronouncing a philosopher's name for my entire life. And we had a salon at our lodge, and she was leading the salon. It was on existential philosophy. Well, we were talking about Simone Beauvoir and Sartre and Camus. And our salon is called Booze and Camus. And the tagline is existentialist, just like Paris, bitch. We drink wine and we talk about existentialism. One of our members actually has a degree in existential phenomenology, and then Elaine, of course, teaches existentialism. But here I am in Lodge, and I'm sort of the host presenting her, and I keep saying Simone de Beauvoir because I'm trailer trash and I don't know how to speak French. And she was so kind. As she began to speak, she stood up and she walked over. She's standing right in front of me, and she says, "Of course, Sartre was married to it." And she turns to me and looks me right in the eye. She goes, "Simone Beauvoir," like that. And I was like, "Thank you so much for correcting me in such an elegant manner." Think about how I'm talking about her. All right, think about that. I'm talking about her with the same enthusiasm and love that I talk about my brothers. So for me, that's a benchmark of the kind of relationship that you want a lodge to have. It goes beyond the sideline chairs. It goes outside of the doors of the lodge. We are in each other's lives.
You're talking about that strong second point that you made in your article, where not only were you talking about, hey, Freemasonry, the benefits, for guys early in life, you can find, that a place for meaning and connections, but this is a part that we never really get into when we try to give the quote unquote sell on joining. It's always like Freemasonry, American history, ritual, tradition, leadership, personal development. We never really talk about, we get lost in the emblems, we get lost in the symbolisms, but we really never talk about this, our greatest gift, which is the brotherhood, is being able to give hope to others during their time of need, wherever that is in life. How can we do a better job of that as lodges to deliver this promise or this message? Even?
How long is this podcast? I'll tell you two things that strike me out of what you just said. And one is to help others in their hour of need. That is important. Of course, we all do that. But I think what's really amazing is that me and my brethren tend to reach out to people long before they need anything. I'm attending the school of my dreams in a couple of weeks. And the reason I'm doing that at 60 years old is because my buddy Scott is an alumni. He went to the Syed Business School. He got a newsletter and saw this program, and he knew that a couple of years ago, I was struggling because AI was starting to really affect content writers. And I was like, I'm just throwing in the towel. I'm going to become a technical writer. I'm going to go back to retail. And he sent me a text, and it was a link to the undergraduate creative writing program at Oxford. Out of the blue, we hadn't been talking about it. We'd never talked about it. And it was extraordinary. It is important that we are there for our brothers when they need us. But we have to remember that they need us all the time. It's not just when your car is broke down. It's not just when you're in the hospital. It's every day. That connection has to remain engaged and active. And it will naturally, if, and this goes to the second part of your point, and that is, how do you make that kind of connection happen? I think the most important thing is, and here's where I'm about to get very snooty and very judgmental. And I just want to everyone listening, I am being snooty and I am being judgmental, and I don't care.
Very bourgeois of you.
Thank you. I'm bougie. By the way, I also used to say, I said NUI for 37 years before somebody said, sorry, it's all weed. And I'm like, God damn it. Here's the thing. People talk all the time about guarding the West Gate. It's such a beautiful topic. They're like, guard the West Gate, and make sure that you vet the people coming in. You shouldn't have to guard the West Gate. And here's why. This lodge that I belong to, this sort of one that I've only been with for 5 years, this brand new lodge, we sort of cherry picked our members and then to launch. And then as we go forward, we made it really hard to join our lodge. You don't just show up and have a petition and people go, yeah, I've known him for a year, whatever. We don't do that. It's a 12 to 18 month process before you can even petition. And during that time, we get to know these guys, and they become our brothers long before it's official. All right, long before that moment we all understand and recognize, long before that ever happens, these guys are already part of our lives. We know their spouses. We've been to their house without it being an investigation. They've come to events that we throw. individuals of us may have gone out with them for coffee or for lunch or something like that. We are texting each other. There's already a relationship established by the time that they petition. Then they go through all the stuff that we all know and love. And there is a moment in the first degree when things are revealed, all right? And that person, that man is suddenly standing there and facing these two lines. Instead of it being people that he's never met before, he has a relationship with each and every one of those guys. And he is looking at them, and I've seen this so many times now. He is looking at those guys with this overwhelming sense of gratitude and joy and love, and most importantly, a sense of arrival. Okay. Those men that are already members of the lodge are looking back at him with love and joy and a sense of welcome and gratitude on both sides. It is a nearly visible beam between everyone looking at each other. It is and it is a galvanizing experience for that person. When you do it like that and you develop these relationships, I'm not letting anybody in that lodge that I don't think is going to be someone I want to introduce to individual members. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to be, if I meet somebody, I'm like, oh my God, Scott needs to meet this guy. Oh my God, Ted needs to meet this guy. Oh my God, this guy does the same thing Mike does. Oh my God, they're gonna get along so well. You know, if I meet somebody like that and things begin to gel, then okay, I might bring them in, but I'm not about to say, hey, come on over on Monday, man. I want you to meet some guys and fill out a form. That's not the way it works. Because we do it that way, and because I cherish these relationships, they are incredibly valuable to me. I'm going to be careful about who I even invite.
Hello, Craftsman Online podcast listeners. This is Brother Jason Short from the Craftsman Online Reading Room. Save the date, Tuesday, October 30th, when our reading room opens at 7 p.m. Eastern as we welcome our special guest, Brother Mark Stavish, author of The Path of Freemasonry. We will be discussing Chapter 8, Occult Masonry of the 18th Century. Get the reading materials, the link to join our YouTube live event, and email your questions for the panel discussion at craftsmanonline.com. That's craftsmanonline.com. See you on October 30th.
The Craftsman Online podcast is now sponsored by BricksMasons.com, our favorite destination for all of our Masonic shopping needs. Whether it's apparel for yourself or a cool gift idea for another brother, make BricksMasons.com your online marketplace where tradition meets innovation. Freemasons are known for our lapel pins, but on every Master Mason, they should also be carrying a Masonic pin in their breast pocket. And at Bricks Masons, they've got the cleanest one that I've seen in a long time. It's a simple black ink metal $20 ballpoint pin, but with Bricks Masons, you can customize the pin's design to include your name and lodge number, or you can even put other special text on it, all for free, thanks to Bricks Masons. Visit BricksMasons.com and explore their extensive catalog. Elevate your Masonic experience with style and substance. Plus, Craftsman Online podcast listeners use promo code CRAFTSMAN, that's CRAFTSMEN, at checkout to enjoy free shipping with your first order. When you describe that look in the now brother's eyes, and also the warm feeling that should exist in every brother who's there that's a part of that degree, a part of that moment, like, we're not just bringing in a new member, we're bringing in a new one of us. Like, that's a really, really special feeling.
That guy is our son.
I was going to go there, but I'm glad you said it. Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking right now about Dylan. He came to us actually the way that normally doesn't happen, right through the Grand Lodge. But we're like, well, let's go meet and talk to him and everything. And we're like, hey, it's pretty cool. And so he started showing up and to our preliminary meetings and everything. And I thought, I really like this guy. And so we started up a relationship. And, eventually went through the whole process. And finally, it was time for his first degree. And then that moment happened. It was a lot of people in that room. I mean, they had tears in their eyes. There were tears of respect, I guess you can say. It's something different from. I'm having a hard time pinpointing the right label for that emotion, but it's not just joy. It's something It's something more solid than that, you know. And Dylan he was overwhelmed. We had to help him stand up. He was overwhelmed by this. It was everything that it is supposed to be. When you find a way to make the ritual in our craft pregnant with meaning like that, then you have really achieved something incredible.
Let's talk about the New York Masonicon. It's our first event. You're going to be one of our featured speakers on Saturday, January 18th, 2025. Tickets are available in the notes for this episode. We got a great hotel package. We're going to have an after-hours event with the 1781 Society. But for someone listening to this podcast, it's like, hey, I'm going to make the drive to New York City. I want to hear this guy talk. What are they in for when Bull Garlington gets on the stage?
Well, there's two things. First of all, I don't do slides or anything like that. I'm an extempore speaker. I don't have notes. I just stand up and talk about what I want to talk about. My feeling is that if you're an expert on a subject, you don't need notes. What I want to do is first have a sort of a step two, you know. So yeah, Freemasonry is the balm for isolation and loneliness of Gen Z and Gen A and hell, Gen X. And if we find ways to be in their field of vision and they begin to come to us and join us, that is fantastic. But that's step one. And step two is you have to think to yourself about why they're joining. And it's more than just being lonely. That's their condition. That is certainly not their reason, and not necessarily their motivation, or not necessarily their conscious motivation for looking at our fraternity. The reason they're coming to our fraternity is the same reason people have come to our fraternity since time immemorial. Put some echo on that. They are trying to answer the philosophical question, the most important question, and that is, why am I here? And they want to give their life meaning. And so what I'm going to talk about is the importance of being ready for that, because these guys are savvy, they are impatient, and I mean they're impatient in a very healthy way. That they're definitely more like people that came out of the Depression in the 1920s than they are anybody now. They have a can-do attitude, and they have a don't with my stuff attitude, and they're not idiots, and they're not going to put up with rickety boomer ceremony. They're not going to put up with that. They are here to achieve something. They are here to earn something, and they are here to change their life, to give their life meaning. If you're not prepared as a lodge to deliver that, then they're going to pass through. They're not going to stay. My talk is about being prepared for that. That's the first half of my talk. The second half of my talk leads out of that directly, and that is the one that's probably going to get me never invited back again.
Is there an expletive in the title? Is that the
It sure is, man. The second half should be titled Esotericism. I actually wrote a paper, I think I sent it to you, called Mesoterica. We've all been in lodge when a new guy comes up and they come up to you and they're like, you know what I'm really looking for? Esoterics. So we've all had that. Yes. And you're going to get that from people you don't even, the guy that's a banker and is like the most straight-laced dude in the world is going to come up to you and goes, have you ever heard of the Kabbalah? Here's the thing, man. They do not want to learn about esoterics. They don't know a goddamn thing about esoterics. And they're not actually looking to learn. They don't want to learn anything about the Kabbalah. They don't want to learn anything about the tarot. They don't want to learn anything about alchemy. They don't really want to learn that. As an established Mason, when you hear that question, you must understand that what they're actually asking is, I am looking to give my life meaning. And what they have done is they are looking for an external locus for meaning. And as we all know, that is the wrong place. And as Freemasons, what we need to do is remember that, and here I am about to divulge the ultra secret, inner secret of all Freemasonry. So you might want to bleep this, I don't know. But this is the slope upon which I will expire. What they're looking for is the connection. It's the simplest thing that we deliver, and that is the connection with other men. A real and true and honest and open and vulnerable and serious connection. What they are looking for is love. And the ultimate secret of Freemasonry, the ultimate thing we deliver, is love. Please leave your screaming all cap responses to that in the comments below.
You have been one of the most exciting and engaging guests so far for 2024. And I'm really looking forward to it. I get the benefit of seeing you here on the video screen. I can't wait to meet you in New York City at our Masonicon. I hope our listeners are considering making the travels to New York if you're not there already. You won't be disappointed. If anything, I'm wondering, are we going to be able to get a 30-second delay on the mic on stage?
I am going to curse. I hope that I get to go on after somebody who goes in depth about some sort of weird, 1930s Chinese zodiac system, because I will blister them in my thing. I will look directly at them on the stage and say esotericism is stupid. And by the way, it's not, all right? It's awesome. Esotericism is amazing. It is a ornate, complex, and lovely distraction. And therein lies the problem. If you help somebody, if they say, I want to learn more about esotericism, and you go, oh, cool, come on, here's 47 books about the Kabbalah, you have done that person and Freemasonry an extraordinary disservice, because that's not what they want. But now you sent them on a rabbit hole that's going to last through their mid-40s. It's a terrible thing to do. They want the connection and they want the love. And once they have that foundation, then hell yeah, go study all that stuff. That's fine. But before that, they need the thing.
I can't wait to meet you in person. Worshipful brother, Bull Garlington, who to this point, still a non-lizard person. We'll see if that changes in January when you're in the city.
Likewise, Michael.
If you've enjoyed this episode, my guest, Worshipful Brother Bull Garlington, you probably will enjoy seeing him in person as well. Make sure to open up your player and check the show notes for this episode for details on how you can be a part of Masonicon 2025 with the Grand Lodge of New York this January in New York City. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow us on Spotify or hit that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts to get new episodes every Monday morning. This is Right Worshipful Brother Michael Arce. I sincerely enjoy our time together every week. Until next Monday, let peace and harmony prevail.